Building with Bricks and Ph.D.s. Welcome to an oral history of the University of La Verne, a series created by the students and faculty of Honors 304-351 during La Verne's 125th anniversary year, 2016 through 2017. I'm Al Clark, Professor of Humanities, and I co-taught this course with Brian Best, Assistant Director of Educational Technology. This series is based primarily on oral histories contained in the university's archives in Wilson Library. Although some of the footage you will see was professionally filmed, most of the oral histories were shot with amateur equipment and with the intention of transcribing them onto paper, not screening them before audiences. Consequently, the sound and video quality of these oral histories is uneven at best. I personally created this episode of an oral history of the University of La Verne. It focuses on the growth and development of Verne College experienced during the presidency of Harold FASNACHT, 1948 through 1968. But it begins with the financial and academic foundation built by President C. Ernest Davis in the years immediately after World War II. This documentary of the series is entitled Building with Bricks and Ph.D.s. Before looking at the expansion of curriculum and facilities that Dr. FASNACHT enabled, such as these 8 red brick buildings on campus, let's look briefly at how Dr. Davis not only brought the college out of the Depression and through World War II, but also raised funds to build the first building on campus in over 2 decades, Woody Hall.
C. Ernest Davis performed a remarkable feat, a feat being the college open during the war years. At the height of World War II, the student body dwindled to 95 students, most of them obviously girls. He was able to, how he was able to offer enough courses and to pay the faculty with no more students than that is beyond my understanding.
2 approaches that President Davis took was holding salaries down and offering small classes.
My uncle, Roy Christ, was the religion professor.
Oh.
And I had a class from him in ethics right after lunch. And there were only 3 of us, Herb Hogan and one other person and myself. And it was so hard to stay awake.
Other ways were letting students develop their own dining club, manage many campus activities, and improvise needed equipment.
My experience at La Verne was that students did everything.
Oh.
We had a commission organization of the students, and there was a president, and there was a forensics, there was activities, there was athletics, there was publications, there was...
These are committees, or are these people?
These were people that were elected
I see.
To be in charge of these particular activities. So the person that was for activities, social activities, would plan the roller skating parties, would plan the square dance stuff in the gym, a trip to the L, snow day, beach day. These were all planned by the students.
I see.
Through the association. And Travis was the coordinator of this commission. Now, for instance, for the years I was here, I was pretty heavy in publications. Yeah. Here's the printing press where we printed the campus times on. Type, we were set type. There's Werner, Rodney, and me.
So you had your own type that you put together too?
Well, we got the line type done at the La Verne Leader, but we had to set the headlines. Well, this is theatrical. We built spotlights out of number 10 cans and lenses. I've still got a few of the lenses I got from my brother's brother-in-laws.
Even before he raised the money to build Woody Hall, shown here, Dr. Davis found war surplus buildings to serve as married veterans' housing.
Here's the veteran housing unit they had where the Stuhan is now.
From 1946 to 1948, President Davis hired faculty to run entire programs, like Al Herbst in mathematics and Dwight Hannawell.
Dr. Davis had written to ask if he would be interested in starting up the men's sports program again at the college.
Oh,
And so he came back to that job.
wow.
I was a math major and science minor, and it so happened that a guy named Al Herbst became my professor of choice because he taught all the math except the calculus. And Dean Brandt taught the calculus.
Everyone President Davis hired wore multiple hats, including Roland Ortmeyer, who came in 1948 as faculty member, coach, and director of the men's dormitory. Other important long-term employees whom President Davis recruited were Virgil Wilkinson, business manager, and Herbert Hogan, professor of history, who, like Dwight Hannawell, were both Laverne alumni.
Herb Hogan
Oh, Herb
was
was
my best teacher.
Oh.
In high school, I hated history. But under Herb Hogan, he had a different way of teaching.
Oh.
He assigned you novels of the period. And so you read Anna Karenina about Russian history. Really appreciated that when I got into seminary, I really loved church history.
President Davis regularly had Laverne's students over to his house and made sure that the new dormitory would be named Woody.
Singspirations at our house. Kids would come there on Sunday evening and sing songs and stuff. J. Woody, he had owned a grocery store. He was a butcher, but he had this grocery store that he owned, and then he retired. He then was the custodian for the college. Just as a retired person, he knew they needed a custodian, so he did it. And when he had enough money that when college students during the Depression needed help, he helped them. You know, it was a real cause for him. That's why Woody Hall, they had that ground taking when my daddy retired. That was the last thing he did was the ground taking.
Came in the summer of 1948 as the new president of Verne College. Came here to find only 3 permanent buildings, Miller Hall, Founders Hall, and the old gymnasium, and a vacant block that was overgrown with wild oats and weeds. The campus itself was unkempt. My 20 years, 9 major building projects. Everything on campus now that has brick construction was built during my administration.
When Harold became president of the college, there were only 3 members of the faculty with earned doctorate. Harold set about encouraging through a host of means, sabbatical degrees and other incentives, encouraging those of us on the faculty to continue our education. By the time Dr. FASNACHT retired in 1968, 50% of the faculty had degrees as compared with 10% when he took over in 1948.
More PhDs on the faculty made regional accreditation possible.
Namely, the accreditation of the college by the Western Association of Schools and Colleges in 1955. And it was absolutely necessary for the future growth and development of the college. For instance, it made it much easier to recruit more capable students, many of whom had been going elsewhere because Laverne was not accredited. Just to give one other illustration of the type of thing that happened following accreditation, Laverne was invited to become a member of the Independent Colleges of Southern California, a fundraising group which included Redlands, Claremont Colleges, Occidental, all the other colleges which we associate with. A group which we had previously we had not been eligible to affiliate with.
That was an era from 1948 on through my years. That was an era that we call the era of the ascendancy of higher education. People were responding to the call of private colleges and universities. It was the thing to do to go to college. Students were not easy to find because there was all kinds of competition. But even students knew that they had to go to college. So enrollments could increase. And there were, it was the time when people recognized this is the era of higher education.
To make this work, finance, as always, was key. Students had to work, and the president had to raise money.
Some of the girls earned their room and board by cleaning the bathrooms or the hallways and stuff like that. And then others would, in the basement of Miller Hall was the dining hall. Mm. And we had a cook, Herb Brown. He did the cooking, but the other people were the students that were earning money for room and board. Family-style eating. Mm. So breakfast was a certain time, and lunch was at 12, and supper was at 5:30. We'd all sit around the tables, 6 or 8 at the table, mm-hmm. and then they'd put the big bowls of food out, and we'd help ourselves, just like it is at home. So the students would set the table and wash the dishes and help make the salads and stuff like that. Students were so involved that they would say, oh, I would like to have this or something. So Herb would go out and get that.
I don't like to raise money. I didn't when I was president. I was terribly intent upon building the kind of thing here and inviting people to join me in building this, to which people would give. They'd find here a kind of ideal that they could support.
FASNACHT would not have been nearly as effective if it hadn't been for 2 sidekicks that he had. And one of those was Herb Hogan, who built the academic side of the institution while Harold was doing a lot of things off campus to develop this university from a college to a university. And then also Oni Leonard was one of those sidekicks for a number of years. Oni Leonard was a one-person university relations office. And he had a half-time secretary, and he did all of the fundraising with Harold FASNACHT.
About 20 of us decided we'd all go to college together at Verne College. And so a guy named Paul Kampmeyer and Oni Leonard were the recruiters at the time, and Paul Kampmeyer had a real easy year in 1953 because all of us had already decided to come. All he had to do was come help us fill out the paper.
Although Maury Flora and his friends decided on Verne College through summer church camp, others learned about the college through choir tours on this old school bus painted green, the so-called Green Hornet, and especially through deputation teams, such as this men's quartet.
Sang in the college choir and in the quartet, and we traveled with the quartet during the summer. 4-part men's quartet would be barbershop, but it would be religious, songs as well, and we would do programs in various churches in Northern California Oregon, Washington.
Life on campus for students revolved around the dorms, Woody Hall and Miller Hall, the library, the gym, and Sneaky Park.
10 o'clock curfew.
Oh, just the girls or the boys too?
Oh, no, just the girls.
Oh.
You get the girls at 10 o'clock. The guys would go over to the old gym and play basketball or volleyball after 10 o'clock. Almost every weekend there was a folk dance going on in the old gym, run by Hannah Walt, and that was a social event. I forget all the names of the dances that Dwight taught us, but we did all sorts of stuff. Some squares, some round. Most all of it round dancing, circle around, and you do the element left and element right, but you do it back around the circle. The old gym with Dwight, we started having dances, and by the time we were seniors, there were actually dances held with 4 or 5 faculty members from the college in attendance, like Herb Hogan and Ortmeyer and Hannah Wald, and I don't know who else was involved with joining that, but there were dances actually held, but not on campus. There weren't any dances on campus. We'd hold them over at the elementary school, right in school.
There were very few transfer students. I was a real exception. Almost everybody came in as a freshman, and almost everybody graduated in 4 years.
They would give us days off for a beach day.
Oh.
The whole college would go to the beach. Or we did L Day, and they would hike to the L to clear
The whole college?
Yeah.
Wow.
The day was off. I mean, not everybody would go, but classes were canceled. It was L Day. When the frosh came in, we had to wear little beanies, and we had to wear our name, a big placard with our name on it. And then they had frosh court after we'd been there for, a couple weeks, and the sophomores would.
And what was Frosh Court?
Well, they just razzed us, and
it was.
They did little silly tricks to us, throw water on us.
Well, Miller Hall, there's a little balcony in Miller Hall, and so the thing was that they'd want the freshmen for a photograph, and so they'd put them on the steps, and then the sophomores had trash cans full of water, and they'd get them all lined up for what they thought was going to be their picture. Still with your beanies on, huh?
Yeah. You didn't have to wear the beanie after that. Frosh Court was the end of. I was on the top floor in Studebaker Hannawalt for at least a year and a half, maybe 2 years. I was up on the top. There's doors out onto the roof on the second floor, and we'd go out there and sunbathe. The days too, when girls were locked up at 10 o'clock. And we had all of our names in the entrance to Studebaker. We all had little cubby holes where our mail was and so forth. And there was a hook on every single little cubby hole. And then there were all these little tiny cards, colored cards. And each one meant something. And you had to check out anytime you left. I don't remember the colors now, but we'll say red was you were in class. Yellow meant you were in the library. White meant you were off campus. Black meant...
Miller Hall was the dorm. Oh. And Woody Hall. So I spent 1 year in Miller and a couple in Woody. There were no restrictions on the guys. I remember when we were in Miller, Mom Hallett was the dorm mother.
Oh yes, we had dorm moms.
And she had a television downstairs in what's the office? The office right inside the door at Miller Hall. That was her room. And we would go down there and pack into that little tiny room. And of course there were a few of us that used Sneaky Park for things that were not acceptable, like smoking.
Water fights on the upper floor, and the guys would slide the length of Miller Hall in water. I told you about being honeyed and feathered.
During his 20-year presidency, Harold FASNACHT, shown here in 1967, modeled Laverne's values for students as he added new programs, such as master's degrees, summer sessions, and the summer service program. He hired several significant faculty members, among them biology professor Robert Neer and economics professor Ahmed Isfahani. In conclusion, here are Emeritus History Professor Herbert Hogan's assessment of President FASNACHT, first in 1990 about the physical plant, and then in 2000 about the foundation he laid for Laverne as we know it today.
Harold FASNACHT years really built what we think of as Verne College, as the on-campus program.
He created a spirit of cooperation, a team spirit among the faculty, and you could not have had the experimentation and the outward growth under Lee the newcomer if you hadn't had the sound foundation that was created under Harold FASNACHT. And you could not have had the growth of Laverne into the university without the sound foundation which is created by Harold FASNACHT, who took this institution and, as I say, literally pulled it up bootstraps.
For help in preparing an oral history of the University of Laverne, and particularly the episode shown here, I'd like especially to thank my colleague in Honors 304, 351, Mr. Brian Best, as well as Ben Jenkins, Bill Neal, and Don Pollock. I'd also like to thank the many people who sat for oral history interviews with me, especially those used in this segment: ELRIC Boardman, RENNIE Borgman, Ralph Click, Charles Davis, Bob Dyer, Maury Flora, Amy Hannawalt, and Virginia Davis Stark. I'd also like to thank the archives of Wilson Library and the University of Laverne for letting me use a number of films that they have in their archives and on YouTube, particularly those produced and filmed by Bill Neal and by Don Pollock, especially the films on Harold FASNACHT, the history of Verne College, and the stories of Herb Hogan and Steve Morgan. Finally, I'd like to thank the Wilson Archives for letting me use selections from a number of oral history that I conducted over the last 3 years, especially those of ELRIC Borgman, RENNIE Boardman, Ralph Click, Charles Davis, Bob Dyer, Maury Flora, Amy Hannawalt, and Virginia Davis Stark.